Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs.
Everybody, welcome into Going Public. I am Harry McCullough. This week, we'll talk about the Terrebonne Levee and Conservation District with its Executive Director, Angela Hidalgo, and its Capital Projects Manager, Trey Middleton. So, guys, thanks so much for being with us. We're going to look at some project updates and a little bit of history and things about you're working on. I want to start with the fact that we got hit directly by a storm last year, and we're not talking about that hardly at all, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's like, wait, what hurricane was that? It was Francine.
That's a good thing. It
came, we got a direct hit, and we had zero flooding around the area, although it was almost a record storm surge, almost 11.5, I think, for our area. So it just, you know, tip of the hat to you guys, and for all the work you guys are doing. When we're going to look at the history of some of the things we're going to look at, and to see the development of this project over the years and how much money it saved, they almost owe us like a little rebate, right? For some
if only, yeah.
So first of all, thanks for being here. You want to update us first about what you guys are doing this time of year? It's not quite storm season, although Trey had mentioned we did see something in the Atlantic last week.
Thanks for having us. We're always happy to be here. We are still recovering from Hurricane Francine. Although we didn't have any structures or homes flood, we still had some damages, about $15 million worth of damages to levees that we're still actively pursue and repair on those levee reaches, and it'll all be complete before hurricane season this year.
And those are more a scour, right? Because everything held, we didn't know toppings,
right.
No breaches.
It's mostly levee scouring, which is basically just erosion off the side of the levees that held back the storm surge.
So so yeah, we're looking good. And anything you guys traded, what's next right before storm season that we need to work on?
Yeah, so this time of year, the water level's starting to come up, and then we can start doing our maintenance closures of all the floodgates, of all the sluice gates, all the water control structures, everything. We go out and test and function test everything just to make sure there's no issues prior to hurricane season, and that everything's prepared and our equipment's ready to go.
Yeah, and then you're also ongoing projects too, right?
Right.
One big one in the navigation of canal. So you want to take us first of all on some of these slides?
Sure.
Okay.
If he wants to start it. Well, everybody's familiar with this is our Morganza alignment. This is
which is a good thing, right?
It's a good thing. This is where Trey and I live and breathe every day.
Yep.
So we're intimately familiar with the project. So, but yeah, y'all have all seen this slide before.
Isn't that a cultural thing, though? There's a lot of parts of the world that we go, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
We're all very familiar
Oh
with
yeah,
this.
very much
we
so.
know what reaches mean.
That's right. That's right.
So this is an investment to date, and these are some of the things I was talking about.
So this is a pretty impressive slide. As we were talking about earlier, my board of commissioners is very aggressive with hurricane protection, and together with the state of Louisiana through their Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, we've allocated dollar for dollar pretty much over $1.2 billion. And that includes some money that the Terrebonne Parish government was able to put on the ground as far as pump stations and that kind of other type of improvements. So that slide that you were looking at earlier is just a representation of, that coupled with the federal funds that have been appropriated to date of over $1.7 billion of investment in Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes.
98 miles.
98 miles.
And so 80 of that is levees. So, everything's under construction or
being
completed.
Lifted or improved, right.
So, that's pretty wild. And you're building area, right? As we look at Ponasham, one of the things that our new lock system is going to do down the road, and what we're looking at here is this is inside of the marsh. But that's the benefits from fresh water, right?
Correct. So part of the features of this Morganza system is that it is self-mitigating. In other words, it provides for marsh creation and growth in the interior part of the system. And this is basically just by us controlling the fresh water.
Right. And that's what we hope to be on a much larger scale once we get that lock in place.
Absolutely.
Because we won't have water, fresh salt water coming up from the navigational canal, and we should really freshen up the area, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that picture was taken in an area that had no marsh creation work done. There was no dredge material brought in. That's just growth from stopping the salt water, storm after storm after storm, getting in that area and killing the interior marsh.
Yeah. Before I want to go to the progression in Morganza and that kind of stuff, but before we get to that, just to run back to what you're fixing right now. We talked about scouring that happened on it. Explain what happens to a levee system when you have water that laps up against it all the time.
So without features to protect the levee itself, whenever we have a storm surge and that energy from the water moving against the side of the levee will cause erosion, if you will. Basically, just parts of the earth material just kind of scoured away, or looks like it's kind of scooped away, and that compromises its integrity. So what we want to do is go back immediately after hurricanes and fix those scours. But scouring on a levee is not a bad thing. Scouring means that they weren't overtopped and they didn't breach. So every storm we expect to get scouring, and we've identified those potential sites prior to the storm and are ready to respond right away.
Yeah. And Trey, y'all had to also, there's a lot of marsh material that ends up on those levees too, right? You got to take all that out.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, all the levee reaches primarily from Dulac all the way over to Pointe-aux-Chenes, all those sections of levee had a massive amount of debris that's got to either be relocated outside the footprint of the levee or on the edge of the footprint of the levee, or in some cases hauled off. And last year for Hurricane Francine, we did about half and half. We hauled off half of it and then relocated half of it.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. Even though everything held last year, still got to make sure it's ready to go.
That's right.
Correct.
Hopefully not this year, but anyway. All right, we'll take a break. More Going Public right after this.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
Everybody, welcome back to Going Public. Harry McCullough here, Angela Hidalgo and Trey Middleton with the Terrebonne Parish Levee and Conservation District. So thanks so much. This is the thing that excited me when I was looking at some of the slides. The progression of the Morganza system and the historical flooding map. And as we go through this, y'all take us through this. That's what I was talking about. They may owe us a rebate, right?
Yeah. So Hurricane Juan, was in 1985. That was before they had a levee district here in Terrebonne Parish, and that is when we created South Terrebonne Tidewater Management District, and then eventually it changed into the Terrebonne Levee and Conservation District. And then you can see on this slide that throughout the years prior to 2008. We've had thousands of homes flood for every hurricane, but from Juan to Andrew, then we had Lily and Bill, and then Rita and Ike. So we've had thousands of homes historically flood. And it was after that 2008 storm that my board took a really aggressive role in flood protection in Terrebonne. And that's right after 2008 is when Tony Alford and Jack Moore and all those guys that are still on my board today decided to take a really aggressive role. So we started building portions of the system, and I think we have included some slides with some levee reaches on it. But we went from having 11,000 homes flood to having ultimately no homes flood.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, we took a direct hit last night. We were already forgetting the names of Hurricane Francine, you know? I mean, Ida obviously was a wind event, but that's incredible numbers. And you look at that number, you're talking about $1.77 billion.
That's right.
That we'd had claims just from that storm.
Just from Francine alone.
Right. So,
Which is more, that's been more than what's been invested into the system to date.
total, right. Yeah. When you put those numbers together.
It's amazing. I mean, Governor Landry put his economics team on that statistic, and it took him about 2 weeks to calculate it. But we've saved that much just for Francine, which was the highest storm surge we've ever had and a direct hit. I mean, we took it on the chin.
Yeah. Can we put that in the FEMA risk rating 2.0
Right.
computer to kind of mess those numbers up a little bit?
I can do. We'll try.
So yeah, we had some pictures and we're going back and then y'all take us through this map look. And what we're seeing, I guess, is Hurricane Gustav.
Yeah, so this was in 2008. This is right before we started building the big hurricane protection levees we have now. We just had that one reach in Pointe-aux-Trembles and the Reach J1 that we had built in '06. And then after that, the next slide shows where we stand today. And that's a massive undertaking of, of a flood protection project in this area.
And still, again, 98 miles and what you're trying to, I guess where y'all headed now is to the western side, right?
Right. So we have work on the western and the eastern flanks of the alignment. And we're also lifting the southern, where we're working everywhere.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're right. If it's there, we want to raise.
That's right.
If it's not there, we want one.
That's right.
You know, so, so we're talking about now a Hurricane Francine recovery. And this was, I guess, some of the work we were talking about earlier, right, Trey?
Right. So that just gives you an idea of the magnitude of the 14 navigable floodgates that we have to close, the size of them. Our team is extraordinary at this. Our crews go out and within 8 hours, within 8 hours of actual working time of the floodgates, they have the whole system closed.
Yeah, and you got to almost wait to the last second a lot of times to make sure you're doing it right.
Right.
I got to close one and open some probably, but
Right.
yeah, that's amazing. That's a lot of flood work. So we're looking at now complete reach H3.
Right. Right. So those are the four primary levee segments that we had scour that Angela was talking about earlier. The H3 is complete. J2 segment 1 is complete. J2 segment 2 should be complete within the next few weeks, and then J3 will be starting in the next couple weeks. And all four levee sections will be ready to go for hurricane season.
So May 1st, I guess, right?
Yeah, June 1st. By June 1st.
Oh, June
we'll
1st.
Yep.
Thank goodness.
It might change to May 1st.
It might just go year round.
Yeah. It feels like it sometimes.
I know. And look, we've had some early ones, although August is really when we got to be ready, right?
Yeah.
Historically. So let's look at some of the projects you guys are working on.
So this is the office building that we are going to be constructing hopefully this year. We did have some state appropriations for some preliminary site work, which is what you see here. They have some dirt that they hauled in and they're installing drainage and that type of thing. This is right by the old Kirk building on highway, right south of Thompson Road.
Right.
That's where our new facility is going to be. So we have over $1.7 billion worth of infrastructure on the ground, and we still yet have to have a facility to operate out of. So a lot of our equipment is scattered throughout areas of the parish. So this will provide us a place for everybody to kind of come together at the end of the day, and then also be a safe house for us to house during the storms. Because the EOC obviously can't fit all of my staff.
Right.
So I need someplace safe to keep so where we can respond to storms right after the mixed landfall.
Yeah, 'cause your guys aren't evacuating. So.
No, we are not evacuating. We are staying right
So
here.
do you have to, and that's almost to Upper Locayo, I guess, is where that building is. How high do you have to put something there?
13 feet.
13.
Yeah.
That's why.
That's why there's a lot of extra dirt. Yeah.
So you got to move stuff around.
That's right.
There for sure. So the next levy, I guess we'll get to is the Emergency Reach A levy.
Yeah, so this is south of if you remember from the map that we showed, there was a gap on the western side. The Corps is currently in construction of a 3-mile section to help fill a portion of that gap, close it off. But there was a section missing, a tie-in from our levee system to what they're building, and so CPRA put forth some money, and we were able to get that done. And really within a month and a half, 2 months, it was completed.
That's good news. All right, we're going to take another break, another segment to go right here on Going Public.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough.
Welcome back to Going Public. Harry McCullough here, Angela Hidalgo, Trey Middleton. They're with the Terrebonne Parish Levee and Conservation District. So, Trey, we're going to pick up work in the Dularge East Levee.
Right, so this is the east side of Lower Dularge. Dularge is surrounded by a ring levee on the east and west side. It's about 14 miles total between the system. This is not technically part of the Morganza the Gulf system. It's a betterment to the system, and it was really important. The Corps, when they did their analysis, determined that that's not the levee off that area. And so our board, working with previous parish administrations, determined that we needed to protect those people. So there's been a lot of investment down there, and this is just one of the projects that's finishing up right now to elevation 12 on the east side.
Yeah, that one took a big hit down there by Dularge. Just had several coming from the east, that water coming from
Correct.
the east. So, yeah. So, of course, obviously you got the Big Lock complex.
Right.
Right.
So that's ongoing, and it's part of a 4-year program that y'all doing?
Yes, so this one is under construction. We're about a year in to a 4-year construction time. They're pile driving right now, 24 hours to keep up with the schedule, but there's a lot of activity going on there. There's some massive pieces of equipment out there.
Yeah. And so that's going to go alongside the Bubba Dove, right?
Correct.
And Houma Navigation. And that's what we're talking about, the freshening up of the system, right? Which should help grow plants, vegetations, all that kind of stuff.
This is a structure that accounts for navigation, but it also provides environmental benefits.
Yeah.
So it'll control salt water and it'll manage fresh water, and it provides for boats to travel through without having to worry about tides and things like that.
Right. And they can go to the last minute, they can get in that kind of way. But also for our Houma's drinking water that a lot of people don't realize, we got to get out of Bayou Lafourche now for most of our drinking water. Okay, we'll move on to H2, H3, those reaches.
Right. So H2, H3 is an island levee in the it goes from Cocodrie to the Chauvin area. If you've been down there, it's on the east side of Bayou Locayu. It's about a 6-mile segment that is currently at elevation 13, and we are opening bids next week to raise those levees to 15 feet.
Wow. So to go 2 feet, how much material do you need for something like
that? That project right there is about 300,000 cubic yards of dirt.
Wow. And how long would that take to raise it?
We're hoping that they work as fast as they can, but to be complete, we're thinking about a year.
About a year. Oh,
yeah.
But that's not, and when you're talking about 2 feet, it's something pretty good.
Part of that project includes a flexi float bridge that we're going to put across at Placid Canal floodgate, and we're going to have to close Bayou Petit Caillou to marine traffic temporarily throughout the day to allow those dump trucks to cross over that bridge, as to stay off roads and be cheaper for us to lift it that way than barging it in to those island levees.
Oh, yeah, which is always a big part of any cost, right? Mm-hmm. Is how you're going to get the materials. All right, next up is Cocodrie and Pointe-aux-Chenes floodgate, the maintenance.
Right, yeah, so all our floodgates have to have 8 to 10 year maintenance cycles where we dry dock them, and those are just 2 floodgates right now that we currently have in dry dock, one at Allied Shipyard in La Rose, and one is at Sea Levels Shipyard here in Houma.
So you pick those up by boat, and you barge them, they're like a barge, right?
Correct.
You can just float them over to where they're going to go. And you have to do that how often?
8 to 10 years.
8 to 10 years.
So every year I have 14 floodgates, and if I'm doing them every 8 to 10, and that right there is about $2 million worth of maintenance. So we have to have at least 2 to 3 million and probably more as time goes on, because things are not getting any cheaper per maintenance of these structures. It's a huge cost that we have to bear.
And what is sandblast and paint and
Right.
those kind of things. Okay, so next up would be the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Project, and then the Bush Placid floodgate.
Right. So this was the area we discussed during Hurricane Ida, where they saw a lot of interior water rise from that north wind. 100 plus mile an hour winds for 6 to 8 hours. A lot of interior water in the Lake Boudreaux area. Tried to empty through the system, and it does that every storm. Depending on what way the wind's blowing, it moves Lake Boudreaux around, north, south, east, west, however it's going. But as part of the hazard mitigation through FEMA, we're installing flap gates on Bush and Placid, big 8-foot by 8-foot diameter flap gates. They're going to be installed there. They'll close when the storm surges on the outside, and then if the water is higher on the inside, they will open and the water can drain.
Wow.
So they'll be at Cocodrie, Bush, and Placid floodgates.
Yeah, because you're always going to need that, right?
Correct.
And winds go all over the place. So lower reach 1 or I.
I, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so this project is essentially complete. We actually have substantial completion inspection tomorrow on it. That's raising it to 14 foot, which was the highest we could get within the current footprint.
And then reach L.
In La Rose.
Yeah.
Right. So Reach L is actually in Lafourche Parish. It's on the east side of Bayou Pointe-aux-Chenes. It connects basically Reach K. Reach K and L connect Pointe-aux-Chenes to La Rose. And this section is complete. They're doing final grading and shaping. But we did open bids last week on a flood wall structure. There's 4 Williams pipelines that run through the levee alignment. So we opened bids on a structure and a bridge to close that area off.
All right. And so we're ready for hurricane season, Angela, but it never stops, right? You're always, we got to find more money.
Right.
We need help. We need.
So it's constant. This is going to be a job underway forever. We'll constantly lift it, the levees, constantly keep them maintained. And so this is just what we do.
And you got some good advocates that are in good places, right?
We have very, very, a lot of support from CPRA and my board, of course. They're all fantastic at what they do.
Yeah, it seems like the governor's kind of invested too.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's great. So guys, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's Going Public. I'm Harry McCullough. We'll see you next time.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality.